Wellness journeys are really interesting because they aren't really just like one massive change typically. I mean, I'm a great example of that, where I really built upon a lot of my knowledge over the past 15 years from when I first started to really try and work on naturally reducing my anxiety. And what I've distilled from that past 15-ish years or so is that there are 10 things that have made the biggest difference for me and my own health and wellness journey. So today I'm going to be sharing all of those 10 things with you so that you guys can implement those if you want to and see if it helps with your wellness journey as well. All right guys, if you're new to my channel and you don't know who I am, my name's Autumn and I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's nutrition and human performance. On my channel, I'm typically talking about the science-backed and holistic methods that you can use in order to feel amazing again. And part of that is understanding that this really is a journey, as cheesy as that sounds. Also, really excited to share that Thrive Market is sponsoring today's video. I never work with brands, and Thrive Market I really love because they are making foods that I'm always talking about, like chia seeds and flax seeds and hemp seeds, affordable, and it's roughly 25 to 50% less expensive than retail prices. Plus, what I really love about it is that they do ship directly to you. I know that there are a lot of you guys that don't necessarily have access to these foods, so not only is it going to be less expensive by getting it through Thrive Market, but also it's literally delivered to your door. Just to give an example, I get my chia seeds from them, and typically if you were to get it from most health food stores, it'd be about $15.99. But because I'm a Thrive Market member, I was able to get it for $7.99. That's half, which is amazing. And you guys know I love chia seeds. I use it in like all of my smoothies. They also have beauty supplies and eco-friendly cleaning products. Plus they have free shipping for any order over $49. And Thrive Market is going to be giving you guys an extra 25% off in addition to the 25 to 50% off that you would normally get anyway from being a Thrive Market member, and a free 30-day trial. All of that is in the link down in the description below. They have a very similar mission that I have, which is making feeling good accessible to everyone. So thanks Thrive Market for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to check them out down below. So let's dive into the first healthy habit that truly changed my life. And this is probably the one you hear me say most often on my channel, and it's eating until satiated. I got somebody who commented on my channel saying that satiated isn't a real word.
Satiate.
It is. It's a real word. This one was a huge shift for me. Intuitively, I always knew this, but in school for nutrition, especially in my undergrad, where they emphasized mostly the government guidelines, it was always highly emphasized to focus on calories, to really not focus on whether or not you felt full or satisfied, but just to focus on if the calorie tracker told you that you ate enough or too little or the right amounts that day. That never really made sense to me. And even when I would put together meal plans when I was in school for these theoretical people, we'd have to so strictly calculate these calories, and I was like, who is going to actually measure out all their food for the rest of their life? And also, is this really the way that we're meant to live? I mean, until fairly recently, we didn't even have the means to measure a lot of these things, and every person is going to absorb nutrients differently. So how can this be possible that calories are going to be the things that really determine if we're going to be successful with our health and wellness goals? And what was really interesting is that in my undergrad, they would talk about the fact that, oh, like hormones do actually play a really big part in weight loss, but we never really talked about it outside of that. It was like this understood truth that hormones did play a really big role in that. And we would mention it, but it was never put into play for when we created these plans, which I just didn't understand. What's also weird about focusing on calorie counting is it really trains you to not focus on your own hunger cues anymore. And it teaches you to not listen to what your body may need. So once I got more into my CCN and my master's program, where we talked a bit more about how hormones are really tied with weight loss and wellness, and the fact that numbers from calories and macronutrients and all that aren't necessarily the end all. This is when I really started to learn to listen to my own body satiety and what it really needs. And as a result, I definitely felt way less deprived. I felt less confused. I felt more energized. And just in general, it felt a lot more empowering to be like, I don't need this calorie tracker in order to figure out how much I need to eat in a day. And as a result, I maintain a steady weight. I don't count calories. I've not done that since college when I was forced to with creating these plans. But this in itself has been such a game changer. And for my clients, it's such a big game changer. For the AM peeps, it's amazing to feel so empowered not to have to track what you eat, but to actually listen to what your body needs and still see the results. Okay, number 2, incorporating daily walks. Now, this is one that probably most of you know me for, is the whole walking thing. I know I've gotten a lot of criticism about that, as well as people who also say that walking has really changed their life. I mean, even putting aside the fact that walking is just easier on your joints anyway, walking inherently is going to lower your stress levels. And since we live in such a stress-induced environment, incorporating a type of exercise that can help you achieve your wellness goals and lower stress, I mean, that helped me personally with reducing my anxiety levels because I wasn't in as much of a state of fight or flight. I really dive way more into this into multiple videos, especially this one. So if you're interested in walking, definitely check that one out. Number 3, when I removed protein bars. This is another one I don't make a lot of friends with the food industry. about. But I think something that a lot of people just don't understand is that much of nutrition and nutrition guidelines is really dictated by clever marketing and PR. And protein bars are a great example for that. In fact, I want to do a whole video on the history of protein bars just because understanding the history of nutrition is the easiest way to see this in action. But these protein bars are always marketing themselves as simple ingredients or low sugar, when in reality, they either are pretty high in sugar for ones that say they're like simple ingredients, or if they are low in sugar, then they use a lot of chemicals in order to make it artificially taste like it has sugar. And the whole reason why I decided to not have protein bars anymore is because first of all, I was like, this is not fitting my nutrition philosophy. How is it that I can say like, oh, candy bars and such are bad for you, but then protein bars aren't, when they have a lot of the same ingredients? I mean, tapioca syrup is one that's in like every protein bar. It's insane. So once I actually got rid of that, it was actually pretty incredible how much it reduced my bloating, along with some other things that were going on, but this one itself just really helped to reduce bloating and focus back on satiety. So that first thing I talked about. Okay, number 4, spending about 20 to 30 minutes per day out in the sunlight. Now, I totally understand that because I am in LA, this is a lot easier for me to do, but it's actually pretty crazy. So about 75% of Americans are deficient in vitamin D, and vitamin D is seen less as a vitamin and more as a hormone for how much of an effect it has on the body. And having low vitamin D is actually pretty scary because it's been linked to things like cancer and anxiety and depression. And what's crazy is that I actually took a test a couple years back and found out that I was really crazy low in vitamin D. That just goes to show you that because we do spend so much time indoors, we've really shifted out of the prime time of getting sunlight in order to help the vitamin D levels. And yeah, you can get it from food, but really the best source is from the sun. That's how we were developed to form vitamin D in the first place, when we get sunlight exposure and then it reacts with cholesterol within the blood in order to form vitamin D. And what's pretty awesome, depending on your location in the world, you only need about 20 to 30 minutes of direct sunlight. And one thing to keep in mind is that sunscreen does block this effect. It does make it so that you aren't able to produce that vitamin D. But the good news is that you really only need to spend about 20 to 30 minutes of that sunlight exposure in order to make enough vitamin D. So the way I do this is I just walk outside. I typically go on a walk if I can wearing shorts and like a short sleeve shirt so that I can get the most sun exposure, or I'll spend about 20 minutes reading outside during my lunch break. One thing to keep in mind, if you do live above or below the 37th parallel, you may need to get a vitamin D supplement just because the sun intensity or exposure isn't going to be high enough in order to get enough vitamin D regardless of how much time you spend in the sun. Okay, number 5, utilizing intermittent fasting and proper nutrient timing. Surprisingly, I was so against intermittent fasting when I first heard about it, especially because I love food, and the first thought when you hear fasting is that you're going to have to limit your food intake, which is not true. And I eventually learned that, of course, and found out how amazing it was for helping to reduce my bloating. I've talked about how bad my bloating was for a while, but something that was happening on a really frequent basis was after I would eat lunch, I would get so bloated that I would have to like lay down while I was working. It was really uncomfortable. And ever since I started using intermittent fasting and having that gut rest period, especially paired with that proper nutrient timing we're always talking about for the stable blood glucose levels, I finally wasn't bloated anymore. And this was in itself a revelation, because unless you really experience that bloating where it's like it inhibits your day, it's hard to understand how much not feeling bloated can have an effect on your confidence and just being able to perform in general. All right, number 6, no electronics 60 minutes before bed. So some of these strategies are really focused on anxiety reduction, and I found that when I got better sleep, that my anxiety was reduced, like greatly reduced the next day. And I also found that the less time that I spent on my phone, I just tended to feel better anyway. But not using electronics like your phone or TV or laptop or any of those 60 minutes before bed helps to make it so that you aren't exposed to that blue light that can inhibit melatonin production, so you can actually get a really great night's sleep. Most of us are probably used to scrolling through Instagram right before bed or watching TV and falling asleep to it. I literally did this my entire life up until a few years ago. And ever since I switched over to having that no tech time, 60 minutes before bed, is when I started to notice a really great improvement in my sleep quality, where I'd wake up feeling rested the next day, and as a result have a little bit of a lowered anxiety. All right, number 7, not feeling bad about treat meals. And I really don't like calling it cheat meals because it just perpetuates that cycle of feeling bad about what you're eating. And I personally used to feel terrible whenever I would eat anything that wasn't in line with my wellness goals. And I love food. I love making food. I love making food interesting, but there's also some foods that I do know that aren't going to fit my wellness goals that I just emotionally love, like pasta and pizza. Great example. I mean, I studied abroad in Italy studying the Mediterranean diet, so those are things that I definitely like. And it wasn't until I realized that happiness is also a part of being healthy where I was like, okay, I need to get over the fact that occasionally I want to have a bowl of pasta and that it is going to satisfy that more emotional need for food. Now, I don't crave these things all the time, but I didn't want to feel bad about craving them when I did feel like it. And it's pretty cool because there's actually some studies that show that incorporating that one treat meal a week is also beneficial for helping people to maintain their health and wellness goals long term. And that's what we're always talking about, is making sure that whatever we're doing is sustainable, enjoyable, and delicious. All right, number 8, prioritizing sleep. Now, I've always known that this is important, just like all of us know that sleep is important, but it seems to be something that even though we know is important, we sort of brush under the rug, and it's the last thing that we prioritize. I mean, I know I did this where before I would wake up early, even if I didn't go to bed until pretty late for whatever reason in order to fit my workout in. And it wasn't until I started to prioritize sleep and understand that rest is a key factor of our wellness goals. I mean, if you just think about working out, you need to have a rest day or a couple rest days depending on what you're doing in order to have your muscles rebuild stronger. I mean, that's why we sleep in the first place. Our body needs to rest so that it can repair. And so once I started to prioritize sleep, of course, I felt better the next day because I wasn't tired. What a crazy concept. But also because I wasn't tired, I wasn't as on edge and I wasn't experiencing as much anxiety. Which leads me into number 9, turning off all my cell phone notifications other than just phone calls and text messages. This came out of me seeing a study that mentioned that every time you receive a notification, whether it be positive or negative from your phone, that you get a spike in cortisol, the stress hormone. So this is pretty crazy, especially when you look at how many notifications you receive in a day. I mean, I had upwards of a couple hundred that I was receiving because of Instagram and Facebook and all of the social medias. And although these were positive types of notifications, it still was just the sense of feeling like you were needed everywhere and you're spreading yourself thin. So about, I think it was a year back, maybe longer, I turned off all notifications from my phone except for those for text messages and phone calls. Unless someone's calling you or texting you, then whatever it is can wait until you have time for it. And not only did I notice my anxiety really started to go down as a result, but I also became way more productive at what I was doing. So I was able to produce more for you guys. I was able to actually make content because I wasn't constantly being disrupted by my phone. I was able to get more into that creative state and get focused, and it was just really a game changer for my career and performance in that aspect, in addition to anxiety. Okay, number 10, switching to a mold-free coffee. So a lot of my techniques are really focused on helping with anxiety and bringing the body back down to a state of balance. And I always thought that coffee made me anxious. I just assumed that it was the caffeine, so I stayed away from it for a long time. And yeah, if I do have too much caffeine, I am definitely going to experience anxiety. But one day I'd listened to a podcast from this one amazing brand, Purity Coffee, and they were talking about the benefits of a mold-free coffee. And I never heard of that before because you would assume that your coffee doesn't have mold in it, right? But it turns out there's actually quite a bit of coffees that do contain mold, and mold can cause that state of fight or flight mode that is really highly associated with anxiety. So I decided to try it out, switched over to it, and it used to be with every other types of coffee, I would literally take a couple sips and I could feel my heart racing and I could feel myself being in that anxious state. But I could have a full cup of the Purity coffee that was mold free and I was fine, which was amazing for me because I love coffee. Thanks again for today's sponsor, Thrive Market. So make sure you check out their link down below. And if weight loss is a goal of yours, I have a really amazing video on the 10 smoothie mistakes that you might be making that could be causing weight gain. Check it out right here. Also, if you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell right here. I come out with new videos every Tuesday and Thursday to help you feel amazing again. All right guys, thanks so much for tuning in and I'll see you in my next video.